Yeah, I'm highly blessed, you know. Well, I mean, I would love to get Dominican citizenship, you know. Yeah, we basically like to get Dominican in international citizenship. Well, the time that you see I stop coming to Dominica would be the time that diabetes and hypertension and these things there, and people are getting healed from their diseases, you know, because all time low. Because I came here about 4 times every 2 weeks, and the previous time for this time I took about 6 weeks because I had cut down everywhere else and given Dominica some priority. And I've been to Tortola, Saint Martin, the British Virgin Islands, Barbados, and these countries, whereby we are continue spreading the word of trying our, yeah, to the world. We go from Africa, Europe, yeah, to the world. But basically, this time around in Dominica, from on Wednesday, that is tomorrow, as you know, my name is Honorable Pries Kailash. I'm the chairman of the Great Physician International, and also what you call a traditional healer, herbal physician. But I went into medical school and did the university thing and got the science knowledge. Now, this time around in Dominica tomorrow, that is from 5 p.m. At the Fort Young Hotel, I'll be doing my first international lecture. That's the first time in my whole time lecturing internationally, whereby I mean Dominica is an international country too, you know. That I will be going into the whole aspects of the drugs, the pharmaceutical industry, and the drugs that we are taking these days, and what effects these drugs are having on us as a people. Why I decided to venture into these realms is because initially what we do fundamentally, we give knowledge on on the physical structure. You know, when we come here we talk about the diabetes, we tell you what you could use and all these things, but we never look at the whole aspect of the pharmaceutical companies because we believe in empowering the people. But I see that things have reached a level whereby it can no longer be ignored, and the people should be aware at least of what exactly is happening in the world. And if it is that they themselves don't care enough to investigate it by their own self, I think it's imperative that they get to know what is it that they are drinking and popping 2 to 3 times a day, and is it having any beneficial effects on the physical structure. If it is that you have been looking at international news, you'd have heard that. Did you hear anything about the WikiLeaks documents that came out? Yeah, then you'd have heard that one of the biggest drug companies in America, I think about the third or the fourth biggest. That's Pfizer. The previous time I was on your program, I think I mentioned that Lipitor sold at least maybe $12.5 billion worth in 2008, something like that. I think I said sometime ago on your program. This Lipitor is manufactured by that same company called Pfizer. Now, what happened in the WikiLeaks document? There was something that was released that supposed to concern people, even here in Dominica. Why? Because we are a third world country, and most times these unscrupulous people take advantage of the disadvantaged people. Why? Because there is no system of accountability in place whereby people could question. What happened is that that big drug company, there were telegrams that showed documents or cables that showed that they were communicating with some department in America, trying to dig up dirt on the Attorney General of Nigeria at the time, because he was carrying out a lawsuit against them for having clinical trials, so giving children drugs. It was an antibacterial drug that they were testing, and there was this dilemma, that whole breakout of meningitis in that community in Nigeria, and that company immediately sent through a team of doctors to try out a new antibacterial drug. And this antibacterial drug got the majority of the children blind and deaf and dumb, and lots of them died. So the Attorney General at the time, when this story broke out on the New York Times and many other world-renowned magazines, they were taking that company to court and they were fining them $7.5 billion. Now, what the company tried to do, they tried to dig up dirt on the man so that they could have blackmailed him to drop the case. Now, this ran through the court system. That was from the early 2000s until this year. I think it was this year when the settlement was made for $75 million. Why? Because there was another attorney general, which is known, I mean, on the world stage to have some kind of unscrupulous dealings. So what is happening now? We are seeing that these companies, right? They have basically what we call a profit motive. They are trying their best to make profit, and at any cost. I mean, if it is that you could give children clinical drugs that could kill them and call them subject to 00145 da 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 da, and what happened? They died or whatever, blindness, dumbness, whatever happened. You find that this specifically make us have to look into ourselves and ask ourselves, hey, in Dominica, what is it that we have in place to ensure that the pharmaceutical drugs that we are taking every single day are going for a robust system? And are we testing to see that after 10 years of consumption of a particular drug, how many casualties is it that we basically get from that drug? What we have to understand in that perspective is that these drugs, even if that these drugs are being tested right now, there's an article in a world-renowned magazine called Vanity Fair, by a gentleman that has won all the prizes to be won in journalism, where he looks at the whole impact of the drug industry on life in America. And from another agency, I think it is the Physicians for some kind of something medicine, where they said at least 200,000 people die in America alone as a result of prescription drug consumption. And many of the drugs that we even here in Dominica are actually utilizing. I know, if you know anyone that has what we call high blood pressure, one of the drugs that you'd be giving these people is what we call lisinopril. Now lisinopril, even in that same document, you could go online, Vanity Fair, type Vanity Fair and type drugs and whatever, pharmaceuticals. That same lisinopril, it is known even in the realms of medicine that it is not effective for African Caribbean people. Why? Because African Caribbean people has a low concentration of what we call renin. Lisinopril is what we call an ACE inhibitor. What it does, it prevents your kidneys